Welcome back to Conversations That Awaken by Bandra. If you've been with us since episode 1, thank you for taking this journey with us. Over the first 10 episodes, we've questioned many of the assumptions most of us inherited without ever examining them. We've explored the nature of reality, the illusion of separation, the origins of belief, the question of God, the self-organizing universe, the fact of being, the limits of language, and the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. You may have noticed that we've returned to some of the same ideas more than once. That wasn't by accident. Some truths cannot be understood by hearing them only once. They must be approached from different angles, examined through different lenses, and reflected upon until they become your own direct insight. Repetition is not about convincing you, it is about inviting you to observe more deeply. Our purpose has never been to give you another belief system. It has always been to encourage you to examine, question, investigate, and ultimately understand for yourself. Because borrowed knowledge is information. Direct experience, on the other hand, is transformation. If you're joining us for the first time, we encourage you to begin with episode 1. Each conversation builds upon the previous one, forming a journey from questioning the world to questioning the one who believes they are separate from it. So wherever you are in the world, thank you for listening. Take a moment to become fully present. Set aside, just for a little while, everything you think you know. And together, let's question everything. I am Kim. I hope you had the opportunity to read or listen to Finding Neve by Bandra. The name Neve, heaven spelled backward, symbolizes a journey of self-discovery, an inward return to the source of true happiness. It is an invitation to look beyond the stories we tell ourselves, rediscover our authentic nature, and awaken to the peace and wholeness that have always been within us.
I want to ask you to do something completely ordinary right now.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Wherever you happen to be, just take a look at a clock.
Like a physical watch or just a phone?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it's the watch on your wrist, or, maybe it's the digital readout glowing on your car dashboard.
Or you just tap your phone screen. That's what everyone does anyway.
Right. So do you see it? I want you to hold that specific image in your mind.
Okay, got it.
Because we are going to start today by unpacking a premise that, well, it sounds absolutely absurd on its face.
Oh, I know where this is going.
What if the thing you are looking at right now doesn't actually exist?
It's just such a profound provocation to start with,
It really is.
Because when you look at that clock, you feel the sheer weight of it. You feel the rush of the morning routine or like the impending deadlines at work.
Oh yeah, the endless, relentless march of seconds.
Exactly. It dictates your stress levels, your sleep, your meals. It feels like the most tangibly real force in the universe.
It feels like this invisible river we are all just drowning in. But what if it's an illusion?
And we should clarify what we mean by that.
Right, yeah. To be clear, I am not talking about the physical object. The glass, the gears, the liquid crystal display, those obviously exist.
You can touch them.
Yes, and I'm not saying events don't happen, things change, we grow older, the seasons shift.
Sure.
But what if time itself, like the invisible substance we firmly believe that clock is measuring, isn't what we think it is?
Which brings us to the whole point of our deep dive today.
Exactly. Our mission for this deep dive is to completely deconstruct this massive, unquestioned assumption that governs literally every waking second of our lives.
We really need to ask the big question. Did humanity actually discover time? Or, did we merely invent it?
And once you start pulling at that specific thread, man, it quickly finds a way to unravel absolutely everything.
Oh, it unravels everything about how we structure reality. It challenges the foundations of physics, the structure of our language.
And even the root causes of our psychological suffering.
Totally. But before we get, too far into the metaphysical weeds here, we should probably address the immediate practical defense mechanism.
The one every single person listening is likely having right now.
Right. Because I know I had it. If time doesn't exist, why am I always running late?
I had the exact same thought. I mean, it's really hard to argue that time is an illusion when you miss a flight, right?
Or when your boss is glaring at you for walking into a 9 o'clock meeting at 9:15.
Yeah, the consequences are incredibly real.
They are. The consequences of our societal agreements are very real. Traffic is real. Meeting schedules are real.
But and this is a big, but acknowledging that societal schedules exist is vastly different from claiming that time exists.
Right, claiming it exists as an independent, invisible dimension just flowing through the cosmos.
Exactly. And I can make a fairly bold promise here.
Let's hear it.
By the time we reach the end of this deep dive, you are never going to look at your calendar or your regrets about the past or even your midnight anxieties in the exact same way again.
I genuinely love that promise. I am really looking forward to having my perspective shifted on this.
Me too. And to guide us through this, we are pulling from some truly remarkable source material today.
Yes, we are.
This deep dive is exploring extensive excerpts from the upcoming book, The Nature of Reality by Joe Bandra.
It is such a masterclass in dismantling assumptions.
It really is. The text uses this brilliant structure, walking through 6 distinct lenses of reality.
Right. It goes through history, science, philosophy, psychology, direct experience, and mysticism.
Layer by layer, just stripping away our conditioning.
It takes a concept that is so ubiquitous, it has basically become invisible to us, and it forces us to look at it under a microscope.
So to truly grasp the argument here, we have to strip away the modern world entirely.
We have to go way back.
Way back. To the very beginning of human civilization, just to understand how our species got so utterly obsessed with the clock.
Let's travel back to the Paleolithic era.
Picture it. We are looking at early human hunter-gatherers, roaming the savannas, foraging, building the first fires.
They definitely didn't have bedside alarms.
No, they didn't wake up in a cold sweat, wondering if they were behind schedule.
The relationship with reality was, well, it was entirely observational.
They were intimately tethered to the natural world because their survival literally depended on it.
But their relationship to what we call time was purely functional. It was based entirely on visible patterns.
Right. They didn't have a conceptual framework for some abstract timeline. They didn't ask each other, hey, what time is it?
Exactly. They asked questions based on movement and change. Like, has the sun reached the mountain peak yet?
Or are the shadows getting longer?
Is the river beginning to flood? Or have the herds started their migration?
They were just looking at events happening in sequence. The sun rises, then the sun sets.
The moon cycles through its phases.
Yeah, the leaves change color and fall. They weren't swimming in a river called time.
They were just navigating a physical environment that was constantly in motion.
And honestly, that was perfectly sufficient for a nomadic lifestyle. I mean, you don't need a calendar to know you're hungry.
Or to know that it's getting cold and you need shelter.
Right. But that sufficiency just completely collapsed when humans made the transition to settled agricultural societies.
That was the turning point. When we stopped following the herds and started planting crops, the complexity of human coordination just skyrocketed.
You can't rely on casual observation when you are managing a large-scale agrarian civilization.
You really can't. A farmer can't just guess when to plant the wheat.
No, because if you plant too early, a frost kills the crop.
And if you plant too late, the dry season ruins the harvest.
Yeah.
You need predictability. You need a system.
And it wasn't just agriculture either. As these societies grew into cities and empires, you introduced whole new layers of complexity.
You had centralized rulers who needed to collect taxes. And, you can't exactly collect taxes on a whim.
Imagine trying to do that. Hey, just pay me whenever the shadows look long enough.
Right. You need fixed, predictable intervals so the treasury can plan.
And you had organized religion, which required highly specific dates for ceremonies and festivals to appease the gods.
And eventually you had merchants trying to coordinate trade across vast distances.
Oh, and sailors who desperately needed precise navigation so they wouldn't die at sea.
Exactly. The simple observation that the sun was shining was just no longer enough data to keep a complex society from collapsing into chaos.
So humanity began to invent tools to impose order on all this natural chaos. We started building measurement devices.
Like the Egyptians observing how shadows lengthened and shortened.
Which led to the invention of the sundial.
Yes. And then you had the Babylonians, who completely altered the trajectory of human history with their math.
The Babylonians are absolutely central to this story.
They really are. They use the sexagesimal system, which is a base 60 mathematical system, unlike our modern base 10 system.
And they were totally obsessed with the geometry of the circle, right? Dividing it into 360 degrees.
Yes. That mathematical foundation, their base 60 system, is the literal reason why, thousands of years later, you and I divide an hour into 60 minutes.
And a minute into 60 seconds. It is a completely arbitrary mathematical overlay created by an ancient civilization.
But we treat it like it's a law of physics.
That is such a crucial point. We think an hour is a fundamental building block of reality, but it's literally just Babylonian geometry applied to the rotation of the Earth.
And the Romans took this obsession with categorization even further with their calendars.
Oh, the Julian calendar.
Yeah.
Which was so misaligned with the actual solar year that centuries later they had to introduce the Gregorian calendar just to fix the math.
They were literally skipping days to get the human calendar back in sync with the Earth's orbit.
Skipping days, which perfectly illustrates that the calendar is a human fabrication, not a natural phenomenon.
Exactly. But the real shift, the moment time truly became a tyrant, was the invention of the mechanical clock.
Ah, the Middle Ages.
Early in the Middle Ages, yeah. Monasteries needed a way to ensure that monks were waking up to pray at highly specific, rigid, canonical hours.
And they had to do this regardless of whether it was cloudy or whether it was winter or summer.
Because you couldn't use a sundial at 3 in the morning.
Right. Sundials are pretty useless in the dark.
Precisely. So they developed mechanical escapement gears driven by falling weights.
And suddenly, time was no longer tied to the sun. It was localized inside a machine.
And that machine gradually moved from the monastery to the town square. It started dictating when the market opened and closed.
Then, during the Industrial Revolution, it moved into the factory, dictating shifts and wages.
And by the time the railroad networks were built in the 19th century, the demand for absolute synchronization led to standardized time zones.
Because you couldn't have trains colliding just because the town of Bristol set its clock to a slightly different solar noon than London.
We standardized the illusion.
We really did. And now we have atomic clocks, measuring the microscopic vibrations of cesium atoms to billionths of a second.
We have engineered the most precise measurements imaginable.
But this is where the historical perspective forces a massive confrontation with our everyday assumptions.
How so?
We treat these inventions, these grids we've laid over reality, as if they are natural laws. But Monday isn't real.
It is entirely a linguistic and cultural agreement.
Exactly. You could launch the James Webb Space Telescope and point it at the deepest corners of the observable universe, and you are never going to find a Tuesday floating in a nebula.
No, nature contains 0 weekdays.
It does not recognize the end of a fiscal quarter. The migration of the monarch butterfly doesn't care about daylight saving time.
Nature doesn't care that it's January 1st.
No. All of these concepts are fictions we agreed upon to make society function.
They are cognitive overlays. But because we have lived with these overlays for hundreds of generations, we suffer from this collective amnesia.
We forgot we made them up.
We have completely forgotten that we invented them. We mistake the grid we placed over reality for reality itself.
Which brings us to the first major conceptual breakthrough in our source material.
Right, let's get into the book.
Bandra argues that every single one of these historical inventions measured change, but none of them discovered a fundamental substance called time.
It is such a vital distinction to parse out. Think about how we measure other aspects of the physical world.
Okay.
When you use a ruler to measure a piece of wood, the ruler is quantifying length. But the plastic or wood of the ruler isn't space itself. It is just a tool for measuring space.
Right, that makes sense.
Or when you look at a thermometer, the mercury expanding in the glass is measuring the kinetic energy of molecules. But the thermometer is not the heat.
It is a measurement of the effect of heat.
Exactly.
I see where this is going. So a clock is merely measuring recurring change.
That is literally all it is doing. The swinging of the pendulum, the mechanical ticking of a gear, the vibration of a quartz crystal in a wristwatch.
Or the oscillation of a cesium atom, or even the rotation of the Earth itself.
Yes. These are simply mechanisms tracking movement. They track one regular motion against another irregular motion.
But none of those instruments prove that there is an invisible independent dimension called time just flowing through the room.
So we took a tool that tracks motion called the result time, and then convinced ourselves that this concept was an actual entity.
We gave it agency. We say things like, time is running out, or time is against me.
Time heals all wounds.
Yeah. We have elevated a measurement of change into an absolute tyrant that we feel is hunting us down.
And that confusion is the root of a profound amount of existential stress. You are stressing out over the human-made ruler rather than navigating the actual environment.
Man, that hits hard. Okay, I can accept that history shows our measurements are arbitrary societal agreements. But surely physics tells a different story. Like, if we leave the realm of human history and look at the actual mechanics of the universe, what happens?
Let's smash the cosmic clock and see what astrophysics has to say.
If you think the historical perspective shakes the foundation, the scientific reality completely demolishes it.
It really does. Because for a very long period of scientific history, the brightest minds on Earth believed in a very rigid, specific version of time.
You're talking about Sir Isaac Newton's framework.
Yes, which completely dominated our understanding of the universe for centuries.
Newton envisioned the universe as this giant, perfectly calibrated clockwork machine.
He did. Newton explicitly believed in absolute time. In his framework, time was an invisible, fixed stage upon which all the events of the universe played out.
It just ticked away in the background, entirely independent of the objects moving within it.
Exactly. In Newton's universe, a second passing here on Earth was exactly the same second passing on the surface of Mars.
Or passing in the empty void of deep space. 1 second was one universally agreed upon duration everywhere, for everything, forever.
And honestly, that feels deeply intuitive.
It totally does. If I clap my hands right now, I inherently feel like that exact moment in time just happened simultaneously across the entire breadth of the universe.
It aligns perfectly with human sensory experience. We all assume we share the exact same now.
It was incredibly intuitive, which is why it went largely unchallenged until Albert Einstein revolutionized physics.
Because Einstein realized that Newton's absolute cosmic clock was a mathematical impossibility.
And that was because of the speed of light.
Right, precisely. Einstein recognized that the speed of light in a vacuum is the only true constant in the universe.
Meaning it never changes no matter what.
Right. Regardless of how fast you are moving toward or away from a light source, you will always measure light traveling at the exact same speed.
But for that to be mathematically true, something else had to give.
The rigid, fixed variables of space and time could no longer be absolute.
So if the speed of light can't change, time itself has to bend to accommodate it.
Yes. Einstein discovered that time does not exist independently. It is inextricably woven together with the 3 dimensions of space.
Up, down, left, right, forward, backward.
Right, woven into a single 4-dimensional fabric that we now call space-time. And this fabric is not rigid, it is incredibly flexible.
The idea of a 4-dimensional fabric sounds like pure science fiction, but this is the literal, verifiable reality we inhabit.
And the way space-time reacts to motion and gravity is deeply counterintuitive.
It really defies everyday logic. Einstein's special theory of relativity proved that velocity affects time.
If you move very fast relative to another observer, time actually slows down for you from their perspective.
Which is called time dilation.
And his general theory of relativity proved that gravity also affects time. Massive objects like planets and stars physically warp the fabric of space-time around them.
They create a gravitational well.
Right. The deeper you are in that gravitational well, the stronger the gravity, the slower time passes for you relative to someone further away.
But I want to make sure we ground this because it's so easy to dismiss this as theoretical math on a chalkboard.
Oh, this is an abstract philosophy. This is hard, measurable physics happening right now.
It is happening constantly, and we have to account for it in our technology.
Take astronauts living on the International Space Station, for example.
Right.
They are orbiting the Earth at roughly 17,500 miles per hour.
Which is incredibly fast.
Because they are moving significantly faster than we are down on the surface, they experience velocity-based time dilation.
So over the course of a 6-month mission, they actually age a tiny fraction of a second less than their families back on Earth.
They are literal, albeit microscopic, time travelers into the future.
That is just wild.
And we see it even more practically with the Global Positioning System, or GPS.
Oh, right, the phones.
Your phone relies on a network of satellites orbiting the Earth to pinpoint your location. Those satellites are moving very fast, which slows their internal atomic clocks down relative to Earth.
Because of the velocity.
But they're also further away from Earth's mass, meaning they experience weaker gravity, which speeds their clocks up relative to Earth.
So you have 2 different relativistic effects fighting each other.
Exactly. And the gravitational effect is stronger, meaning the clocks on the GPS satellites actually tick slightly faster than the clocks on our cell towers.
I mean, if physicists and engineers did not program those satellite systems to constantly mathematically correct for Einstein's theories of relativity,
the entire GPS network would fail.
The timing errors would compound so rapidly that within a single day, Google Maps would be off by several miles.
Your navigation would be entirely useless.
That is staggering. The fact that the map app on my phone is literally calculating the warping of space-time just to get me to a coffee shop.
It really grounds the physics in reality. So What this proves conclusively is that Newton was wrong.
There is no master metronome dictating the pace of the universe.
Time is entirely relative to your speed and your proximity to mass.
Newton thought everyone was dancing to the exact same beat, but Einstein proved that every single particle in the universe is listening to its own unique song.
There is no universal master clock.
Which means there is no single universal now.
Exactly. The present moment you are experiencing right now does not perfectly align with the present moment of an observer in the Andromeda Galaxy.
Or even an astronaut in orbit. The illusion of an absolute shared timeline is completely shattered.
And this scientific reality brings us to a moment in the text that I found profoundly moving.
Yes. Bandra points to a letter Einstein wrote late in his life.
When Einstein's lifelong friend and collaborator, Michel Besso, passed away, Einstein wrote a letter of condolence to Besso's family.
And in it, he wrote, "For us believing physicists, the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion."
It is arguably one of the most haunting and beautiful sentences ever written by a scientist.
It really is. He wasn't being poetic or offering empty comfort.
No, he was speaking from the depths of his mathematical understanding of the universe.
He was recognizing that the fundamental architecture of reality is far stranger and vastly more expansive than our limited sensory perception allows us to see.
It speaks to what the source material describes as the block universe theory.
If the past, present, and future are an illusion, how do physicists visualize reality?
Well, many physicists interpret the equations of relativity as pointing toward this block universe model. The easiest way to visualize it is to imagine a classical celluloid movie reel.
Okay, a movie reel.
When you hold that reel in your hands, every single frame of the film, the opening scene, the climax, the closing credits, they all exist simultaneously.
The entire story is already there, physically printed on the plastic.
Right, but you can't watch it that way. You have to thread that reel into a projector, sit in the theater, and watch a light shine through it.
And because of the limitations of the projector, you only experience the movie one single frame at a time.
Exactly. This creates the sensation of a sequence. You feel like there's a past, the scenes you just watched that are now spooled on the back reel.
And you feel like there is a present, the single frame illuminated on the screen right now.
And you feel like there's an unknown future.
Yeah.
The scene's still waiting to pass through the lens.
But objectively, outside the projector, the entire film exists all at once.
In the block universe theory, space-time is a four-dimensional block, where all events that have ever happened, are happening, or will happen exist simultaneously.
So our consciousness is simply the light of the projector, moving sequentially along our specific world line.
We perceive the passage of time, but the events themselves are simply coordinates in the block.
That concept completely short-circuits my brain.
It's a lot to take in.
It implies we are trapped inside the mechanics of the projector, utterly convinced that the movie is being spontaneously generated frame by frame, when in reality the entire tape is already sitting in the projection booth.
It really makes human confidence in our perception seem almost laughable.
And the source material highlights this absurdity with a brilliant thought experiment. Imagine a highly advanced spacecraft lands on Earth tomorrow, and an alien species steps out.
It's the perfect setup to expose our blind spots.
Exactly. So these highly evolved aliens look around at our civilization and they ask, what is this concept you seem entirely obsessed with? What is time?
And humanity, wanting to demonstrate our technological prowess, proudly brings them a solid gold Rolex.
The alien inspects it and says, no, this is just a piece of jewelry with miniature mechanical gears inside. It's a kinetic sculpture.
So, a bit frustrated, we take them to London and point at Big Ben.
And the alien says, no, that's just a larger arrangement of gears and bells driven by gravity.
We're showing them the ruler, but they want to see the space it measures.
Right, so we take them to the most advanced physics laboratory on Earth and show them a hyper-precise atomic clock.
We explain how it tracks the microwave signal of electrons changing energy levels.
And the alien nods and says, very impressive engineering. You are tracking atomic vibrations. I understand perfectly how you build machines to track repetitive motion.
But I ask again, what exactly is the invisible substance you claim these machines are measuring?
And suddenly, the collective scientific community goes completely silent.
Because that question forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth.
We don't actually know. We have mastered the art of measuring a phenomenon without ever stopping to confirm if the underlying substance being measured even exists independently of the tools we build.
We are pointing at the lines on a ruler and screaming, "Look at all this space!"
And the alien is calmly pointing out that we are just staring at a stick with paint on it.
Which means we have to pivot our investigation.
Right, because if history reveals that our calendars are arbitrary societal constructs,
And if quantum mechanics and relativity prove there is no universal cosmic clock ticking away in the background,
we are left with a massive paradox.
if time isn't a fundamental, absolute property of the external universe, why does it feel so agonizingly real to us?
Why does it cause us so much stress, regret, and fear?
To answer that, we have to steer this deep dive away from the stars and satellites and turn inward.
We have to examine the inner universe of human consciousness by looking through the philosophy and psychology lenses.
I am eager to parse this out, because regardless of what Einstein's equations say about spacetime, my lived experience is that time is a very real, very heavy burden.
Why am I suffering from an illusion?
Well, philosophy has been wrestling with this exact disconnect between physics and perception for millennia.
The text highlights a profound insight from St. Augustine, written over 16 centuries ago, that perfectly articulates this human dilemma.
He wrote, "What then is time? If no one asks me, I know. If I wish to explain it to him who asks, I do not know."
That perfectly captures the cognitive dissonance. It's like trying to define the concept of a shadow.
You interact with it constantly, but the moment you try to grab it, there's nothing solid there.
Because the moment we try to rigorously define time, we realize we have been relying on a linguistic concept our entire lives without truly understanding its nature.
Different cultures throughout history have tried to build different frameworks to make sense of it.
The ancient Greeks debated heavily between chronos, which was sequential, chronological time, and kairos, which was the qualitative, opportune moment.
They argued over whether time was a linear arrow shot into the future or a repeating cyclical circle.
And Eastern philosophies approached it differently as well.
Very differently. Ancient Indian Vedic traditions spoke of yugas, massive, mind-boggling cosmic cycles of creation and destruction lasting billions of years,
Emphasizing that everything is a repeating pattern.
Meanwhile, classical Chinese philosophy, particularly Taoism, didn't view time as a rigid framework or a timeline at all.
They viewed reality as an interconnected, natural flow of continuous change.
Which perfectly sets up this brilliant analogy in the source material about how the very words we use deceive us.
Think about standing on the bank of a river. You point at the water and you say, "The river is flowing."
It's a completely normal sentence.
But if you deconstruct it, what is actually flowing?
The water molecules are flowing downhill due to gravity.
Exactly. The water is moving. The river isn't flowing.
River is just a convenient noun, a label we invented to describe the continuous process of water changing its location.
The word itself tricks our brains into thinking river is an independent, solid object performing an action.
Our language is deeply, inherently deceptive. We apply static nouns to dynamic processes.
And a generation later, we completely forget we made the word up and we start believing the noun represents a solid thing.
That is the crux of the philosophical problem. This raises an incredibly important question for us to consider.
When we casually say time is passing, are we just falling victim to another linguistic trick?
Are we confusing the label for the reality?
Perhaps we are not physically moving along a timeline at all. Perhaps reality is simply a state of continuous, dynamic change.
And we have lazily slapped the noun time onto that experience to make it easier to talk about.
I can follow that logic philosophically, but I want to push into the psychology lens now because while language might be tricky, my brain definitely processes time as a highly elastic, deeply emotional experience.
It absolutely does. And this is where psychology reveals how much of reality is generated internally rather than observed externally.
Your perception of time is completely subjective. It is not a fixed, objective intake of data.
Think about the classic example. You are sitting in a dentist's waiting room, listening to the drill, knowing you're about to get a painful root canal.
It is pure torture. 5 minutes in that chair feels like 5 hours.
You are staring at the second hand on the wall clock, and it genuinely feels like the mechanics of the clock are failing. Time slows to a crawl.
Now contrast that precise measurement with a different scenario.
You are spending an evening at a dinner party, surrounded by your closest friends.
The conversation is incredible, you are laughing, you are completely engaged. You glance at your watch and suddenly it's 2:00 a.m.
Those 5 hours vanished. They felt like 5 minutes.
Now the mechanical clock on the wall didn't alter its mechanics. The Earth didn't change its rotational speed.
Einstein's relativity wasn't a factor. The only variable that changed was the neurochemical state of your mind.
So fear stretches our perception of time, while joy and engagement compress it.
That is a wild realization. Our emotional state is literally dictating how we experience what we mistakenly believe is a fundamental force of physics.
Because psychological time is deeply, inextricably tied to the emotional processing centers of the brain, particularly the amygdala.
Think about where negative emotions live. Anxiety, dread, and worry almost exclusively live in imagined tomorrow.
Depression, regret, and resentment are deeply anchored in a remembered yesterday.
If you observe your own mind closely, you will find that very little of your acute psychological suffering is generated by the exact, precise sensory input of the present moment.
The suffering is almost entirely generated by the narrative playing in my head about the past or the future.
And this leads to a massive breakthrough in how the text frames human suffering.
Yes, Bandra reveals that the human brain performs two incredible evolutionary functions: memory and imagination.
But these exact same functions simultaneously create our greatest illusion.
They are a double-edged sword. Memory allows us to learn from past mistakes so we don't touch a hot stove twice.
Imagination allows us to anticipate complex scenarios and plan for the winter.
From an evolutionary survival standpoint, they are brilliant, essential tools.
The problem is that we no longer use them solely as tools. We've become entirely trapped inside them.
The text uses this deeply visceral metaphor of carrying imaginary backpacks. I want to spend some time on this because this metaphor hit me incredibly hard.
It's a great visual.
Imagine you are walking through your daily life and you are carrying a massive, heavy backpack on your shoulders.
And inside this backpack is every embarrassing mistake you've ever made.
Every failure, every insult you've ever absorbed, every relationship that fell apart, that is your memory backpack. It is heavy and you carry it everywhere.
And then you strap a second, equally heavy backpack onto your chest.
And this one is filled with your future projections, your anxiety about your mortgage, terror over a medical test result, stress about the political climate, fear of running out of retirement money.
You are wandering through life physically crushed by the weight of a past that literally no longer exists and a future that hasn't even happened yet.
And then a friend walks up to you at a coffee shop, notices you look exhausted, and asks, "How are you doing?"
And you sigh and say, life is just so heavy right now.
But I have to ask myself, is life actually heavy in that exact second? Am I under physical threat while sipping a latte?
No. You are simply collapsing under the self-generated weight of two imaginary backpacks.
It is a profound realization when you catch yourself doing it.
Consider the very common experience of the person lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, heart racing.
What is their actual physical reality in that present moment?
Their body is perfectly safe. They're lying on a soft mattress in a secure, climate-controlled room wrapped in warm blankets.
In that exact fraction of a second, there is zero threat to their survival. But their mind is actively time traveling.
They are agonizing over an awkward email they sent 3 days ago.
Or they are catastrophizing about a presentation they have to give to their boss next Tuesday.
Exactly. They are physically resting in a peaceful present, but psychologically, their brain is interpreting these imaginary scenarios as active threats.
Their nervous system responds by flooding the body with cortisol and adrenaline. They're being physically tortured by ghosts.
Ghost hunting at 3 in the morning. It really forces you to reevaluate common phrases we use.
When someone goes through a divorce and says, "I lost 10 years of my life to that bad marriage," or someone changes careers and says, "I wasted 5 years in that dead-end job," did they actually lose time?
What's fascinating to realize here is that nobody can actually lose time because, as we've established, time isn't a physical substance you can put in a bank vault or misplace.
You didn't lose 10 years. What you actually lost was your awareness of the present moment for the duration of those years.
You were physically present for every single day of that marriage or that job, but psychologically you were absent.
You were trapped in resistance, or clinging to the hope of a better future, or drowning in resentment over past arguments.
The tragic loss isn't a loss of time. It is a prolonged loss of presence.
That reframes the entire concept of regret.
It really does.
Okay, so if the human mind is this runaway train constantly trapping us in the illusory past and the imagined future, how do we get off the train?
How do we put the imaginary backpacks down?
This transitions us to the fourth lens in our source material, which is arguably the most confronting one because it demands participation.
The direct experience lens. It's about realizing that the map we draw is not the actual territory we are walking on.
This is where we move from intellectual theory into practical application.
The source material invites the reader, and by extension we invite you, the listener, to try a very simple, immediate exercise.
It asks you to drop the historical data, drop the quantum physics equations, drop the philosophical debates for just 1 second.
And rely entirely on the raw data of your own direct experience.
Let's do it. If you are in a safe place to do so, obviously not if you're driving, just close your eyes for a brief moment.
I want you to intentionally drop your memory.
Just unclip that heavy backpack of the past and set it on the floor.
Now, intentionally drop your imagination of tomorrow. Take off the backpack of future anxiety and set it down next to the other one.
Now, with no past and no future, look around inside your awareness. Search for time. Can you find it?
When you rigorously strip away the thoughts about yesterday and the projections about tomorrow, what is actually left in your sensory field?
You can hear sounds, perhaps the hum of a refrigerator, the wind outside, or the sound of our voices.
You can feel physical sensations, the temperature of the room, the feeling of your breath entering your lungs, the rhythm of your heartbeat.
You experience the raw sensation of awareness itself, but you cannot directly experience time.
I can't reach out and touch yesterday. I can't put last week in a jar. It simply isn't there.
It isn't there because it doesn't exist.
Every single major event in your entire life, your earliest childhood memory, your graduation, your greatest heartbreak, the moment you met your best friend.
When those events actually occurred, they occurred exclusively as now.
They did not happen in the past.
Yeah.
That is such a deeply weird sentence to say out loud, but it is undeniably true.
When my first kiss happened, it wasn't the past. I wasn't kissing a memory. It was vividly, overwhelmingly happening now.
And that profound now is the only space where reality unfolds.
The past only exists now as a neural pathway firing in your brain, reconstructing a memory.
The future only exists now as a different neural pathway firing in your brain, constructing a prediction.
Life itself, the actual tangible, raw experience of existing, has never, ever stepped outside of the present moment.
But we miss it constantly. We completely ignore the only place life is happening.
The text uses these incredibly relatable, everyday examples. Think about driving your normal 20-mile commute home from work.
You know the route by heart.
Instead of feeling the steering wheel in your hands or noticing the color of the clouds or actually listening to the music playing.
Your mind is obsessively replaying a slight you received from a coworker last Tuesday.
You have physically transported your body 20 miles across a city, but mentally you remained entirely trapped in a phantom Tuesday afternoon.
Or consider a positive scenario that we ruin. You sit down to a beautiful family dinner.
The food smells incredible, your partner is smiling, your child is telling a funny story about their day.
It is a perfect, rich, sensory moment, but psychologically you aren't at the table.
You are entirely consumed by the performance review you have to give next Thursday.
You are chewing your food, but you are completely absent from the only place where your life is actually occurring.
I do that all the time, and it's exhausting.
We all do.
But I have to push back here because my brain immediately throws up a massive defense mechanism when we talk about this.
What about the physical reality of getting older?
Exactly. What about birthdays? I can look in the mirror today and see gray hair and wrinkles that absolutely were not there 10 years ago.
Doesn't the undeniable fact that my physical body is decaying prove that time is a real, literal thing that is flowing through me?
Doesn't a birthday prove that a year of time just hit me?
It is the most natural, deeply ingrained objection we have. We throw parties and celebrate birthdays as if a tangible unit of time has physically passed through our bodies, leaving a mark.
But Bandra counters this assumption perfectly. He argues that a birthday is merely astronomy.
That is exactly the right way to frame it. Think about what objectively happened between your last birthday and today.
The planet Earth completed one more elliptical orbit around a star we call the Sun.
That is a physical, astronomical event involving massive celestial bodies in motion.
During the course of that orbit, the cells in your body divided, replicated, and slowly degraded due to entropy. The seasons shifted.
The universe underwent a continuous process of change.
But absolutely none of that proves the existence of an invisible, independent substance called time that somehow flowed through you to cause that aging.
The aging was just cellular change. The universe changed, my environment changed, and my body changed along with it.
Precisely. We observe that massive sequence of continuous changes, and we label it 1 year.
It is a profoundly useful linguistic and mathematical measurement for organizing society.
But again, we're confusing the map for the actual territory.
The calendar is simply a paper map we drew to help us navigate a universe that is constantly in motion.
But if you were hiking, you wouldn't lay a paper map of a mountain on the ground, stare at the topographical lines, and claim you were climbing the mountain.
Because the map is a representation. It is not the mountain itself.
Exactly. The calendar is a representation. The clock is a representation. They are not reality. They are human tools.
To really hammer this paradigm shift home, the source material offers a brilliant thought experiment.
I want you to imagine if, by some bizarre, inexplicable magic, every single clock, watch, smartphone, and paper calendar on Earth simply vanished tonight while we were all sleeping.
A total global temporal blackout, no devices left to track sequence.
Right. So we wake up tomorrow morning, and there is no way to measure the sequence of events. What would happen to the natural world?
Would the sun suddenly panic and forget to rise over the horizon?
Would the ocean tides stop coming in? Would the migrating geese get confused and just fall out of the sky because they missed a calendar alert?
Of course not. The natural world would not even register the absence of our clocks.
The flowers would still bloom in response to warmth and light. The tides would still follow the gravitational pull of the moon.
The natural order of the cosmos would simply continue to unfold, just as it has seamlessly for billions of years before we invented gears and pendulums.
The only species on the planet that would absolutely lose its mind would be us.
Humans would descend into total panic because we have tethered our entire psychological existence to artificial schedules, whereas nature operates on an organic, unfolding order.
A tree doesn't need to know what time it is to grow. The universe doesn't need a watch to exist.
Which serves as a beautiful natural transition into the fifth lens.
Because once you rigorously strip away the physical clocks, burn the paper calendars, and recognize the psychological burdens of memory and anticipation for the illusions they are, what are you actually left with?
We have explored history, astrophysics, linguistic philosophy, and cognitive psychology.
Now, this deep dive takes us into the oldest, most rigorous laboratory in human history, the human heart and consciousness. We arrive at the mysticism lens.
And I think it is really important to clarify our terms here, because when a lot of people hear the word mysticism, they immediately think of spooky magic, crystal gazing, or blind religious dogma.
But the source material is very careful to define this differently. It isn't talking about belief systems or blind faith at all.
It's talking about direct empirical realization.
It is looking at the empirical data of human consciousness observed by those who spent their entire lives studying it.
What is endlessly fascinating here is the historical convergence. Across thousands of years of recorded history, you have individuals living on entirely different continents.
In ancient India, the mountains of China, the deserts of the Middle East, the monasteries of Europe.
They spoke completely different languages. They had no internet, no printing press, no conceivable way to share notes or influence each other.
Yet they all discovered the exact same fundamental truth when they looked deeply inward past the illusion of the thinking mind.
They all independently found that ultimate truth is timeless. But there is a crucial distinction we need to make here, because I think modern culture completely misunderstands what the word eternity actually means.
It is a massive misconception. In many popular later-stage religious frameworks, eternity is pitched as a concept of endless time.
The narrative is that you live a linear chronological life here on Earth, you die, and then you cross over and continue living on a timeline that just stretches out infinitely, forever and ever into the future.
It's conceived of as a line that simply never ends. Endless tomorrows. Billions of years of more time.
Right. But when you read the original texts of the great mystics, they were not talking about more time. They were pointing to something far more radical.
They were talking about the complete and total absence of time.
No line at all.
Exactly. No line. No beginning, no end, no movement from point A to point B.
They were pointing to a state of pure awareness that exists underneath, or prior to, the concepts of yesterday and tomorrow, even arising as thoughts in the human mind.
The text synthesizes this global perspective so beautifully, drawing common threads through radically different traditions. Let's walk through some of these figures to see how they align.
Take Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, sitting in meditation under the Bodhi tree 2,500 years ago.
He wasn't trying to start a global religion with temples and statues. He was essentially acting as a rigorous scientist of human suffering, asking a basic question: why do human beings hurt so much?
And his ultimate conclusion was that our suffering is not inherently created by reality itself. It is created by our mind's resistance to reality, which he called attachment.
We attach to pleasure and panic when it fades. We attach to our rigid identities.
But most importantly, we deeply attach to our memories and our imagined futures. We are fundamentally addicted to psychological time.
The Buddha's entire framework for liberation was an invitation to wake up from the daydream of past and future and anchor entirely in this exact present moment, because the present is the only place life is actually occurring.
And right around the same era, over in ancient China, you have Lao Tzu observing the natural world.
He's looking at rivers, trees, and clouds, and he realizes that a river never stresses out about being a river. A tree isn't having an existential crisis about whether it will have enough leaves next Tuesday.
Everything flows effortlessly in accordance with what he called the Tao.
One of the most famous Taoist insights is that nature never hurries, yet everything is accomplished.
It is the ultimate indictment of human rushing. We rush frantically through today, desperate to arrive at tomorrow, only to spend tomorrow worrying about the day after that.
We never actually arrive anywhere. It's a psychological treadmill we never step off.
And then the text brings in a perspective from Jesus of Nazareth, which, it argues, is one of his most profound and frequently misunderstood statements. The kingdom of God is within you.
It is a radically disruptive statement if you read it without the heavy baggage of later institutional theology. He didn't say the kingdom is a physical place waiting for you after death.
He didn't say it's located out beyond the stars in the sky. He didn't say it arrives at the end of a grand historical timeline.
He said it is within you now. It is a present tense reality of consciousness.
So if this state of peace or liberation is already here, right now, what is blocking us from experiencing it?
The ego, the constant stream of compulsive thought, fear, the relentless psychological search for fulfillment somewhere else in some future moment.
We are so desperately addicted to the concept of one day.
This was honestly my biggest takeaway from this entire deep dive. We tell ourselves these stories. One day I'll be happy. One day I'll finally relax.
One day when I get the promotion, or when I pay off the mortgage, or when the kids finally graduate and move out, then I will finally arrive at peace.
The ego structure in the brain survives entirely by whispering, not yet. It needs the concept of a future to maintain its identity as a seeker.
But fundamental reality simply whispers, already. Everything you are actually looking for is available in the depth of the present moment.
The source material pulls from Meister Eckhart, the brilliant 13th century Christian mystic, who famously said, "There exists only the eternal now."
He believed that the birth of the divine doesn't happen in a historical timeline. It happens continually in the present moment, in the center of your own awareness.
And Rumi, the great Sufi poet, was even more blunt. He essentially stated that the past and the future are nothing but veils, hiding the face of reality from us, and we should burn them both to the ground.
By which he didn't mean we should stop planning our grocery trips or paying our bills, but that we must break our psychological obsession and identification with those thoughts.
This echoes the profound teachings of the Eastern sages mentioned extensively in the text. Consider Ramana Maharshi, whose entire central practice was asking practitioners to simply sit and ask the question, who am I?
But crucially, the inquiry was not who was I in the past, or who will I become when I am enlightened.
He forced the mind to ask, who am I now in this exact second? When you rigorously strip away the historical narrative of your life, what is left is pure, observing awareness.
And Nisargadatta Maharaj, who guided people to just rest in the raw feeling of I am, not I was a successful lawyer or I will be a good person.
Just the raw, fundamental, stripped-down fact of existence, I am.
J. Krishnamurti brought incredible modern clarity to this by drawing a hard, bright line between practical chronological time and damaging psychological time.
He readily agreed that you absolutely need chronological time to bake a loaf of bread, learn a language, or catch an airplane.
But psychological time, the deeply held belief that you need time to become a better person inwardly, or that enlightenment is a future goal to achieve, is a total trap.
Right. Krishnamurti argued that inward transformation doesn't take time at all. It can't, because time is just thought. True insight happens instantly.
It's like getting a joke.
Yeah.
You don't slowly understand the punchline of a joke over 3 weeks.
You either don't get it or snap. The perspective shifts and you get it instantly.
And Eckhart Tolle brought this exact realization to millions of people in the modern era by pointing out that most of us are essentially living our entire lives inside the virtual reality of our thoughts and almost never interacting with actual reality.
The present moment isn't just a tick mark on a clock face. It is the actual physical doorway through which all of life appears.
So we have this incredible synthesis. We have ancient mystics and modern spiritual teachers saying time is an illusion generated by the mind.
And we have quantum physicists and Einstein saying time is a relative, flexible dimension inextricably linked to space, not a cosmic absolute.
This brings us to a powerful realization about where human knowledge is heading.
This is where the entire deep dive reaches its crescendo, because for centuries, science and mysticism were viewed as entirely opposing hostile forces.
Science looks outward, using telescopes, particle accelerators, and rigorous mathematical equations to decode the material universe.
Mysticism looks inward, using meditation, self-inquiry, and direct observation of consciousness to decode the inner universe.
But they are starting to arrive at the exact same destination.
Science isn't trying to prove mystical insight, and mysticism isn't doing quantum math, but they are both standing at the edge of human understanding, nodding at each other in mutual humility.
They are both fundamentally saying, hey, this everyday ticking clock, solid reality we all think we live in, it's not the whole story. In fact, is barely the cover of the book.
They both suggest, through completely different methodologies, that reality is unimaginably richer, stranger, and more expansive than we can possibly perceive with our basic primate sensory tools.
And this convergence leads to a moment in the book that is just profoundly personal and illuminating.
Yes, Bandra shares a profound personal reflection. He details how on April 15, 2020, at exactly 4:18 in the morning, the ordinary heavy sense of his psychological identity completely vanished.
It is a striking and detailed account of a paradigm shift. He points out that he wasn't a monk living in a cave.
He wasn't even actively meditating or seeking some grand, cinematic, spiritual enlightenment at the time.
But in a single, unprompted instant, the entire psychological construct of his past regrets and his future anxieties collapsed.
He describes the aftermath not as a dark, empty void, but as an overwhelming, vibrant sense of aliveness.
He writes that there was absolutely no fear, no ambition, no comparing himself to others, just pure, unadulterated presence.
And what's fascinating about his account is that the physical world didn't stop functioning. The digital clock beside his bed kept ticking. Chronological time kept moving forward.
But the burden of psychological time simply vanished from his mind for 30 days. He was entirely free of the imaginary backpacks.
What makes his story so vital for the listener isn't that this specific author had a special or unique experience.
He includes it to emphasize the realization that this state of timeless awareness is not reserved for chosen gurus on mountaintops or saints from antiquity.
It is the fundamental underlying baseline of every single human mind once the incessant noise of psychological time is finally turned down.
It is available to all of us right now, because chronological time is a brilliant, necessary invention for catching a train or scheduling a meeting. We need it.
I am not throwing away my calendar or deleting my alarm app, but our fundamental awareness needs no invention.
If you look closely at your own experience, you will see this. Think about the deepest part of your being, the raw, observing awareness that was looking out through your eyes when you were 5 years old playing in the dirt.
That exact same awareness was there when you were 25 and figuring out your career.
It was there when you were profoundly heartbroken, and it was there when you were triumphant. That core awareness never aged.
The physical body aged. The thoughts in your head changed entirely. Your life circumstances shifted.
But the witness behind all of it remained completely untouched by the calendar. It simply watches the continuous change of the universe.
Wow. Okay. We have covered an immense amount of ground today, from the savannas of early humanity to the equations of relativity, all the way to the silence of the mystic's mind. Let's try to pull all these diverse threads together as we wrap up this deep dive.
If we synthesize everything we've explored, the narrative arc of humanity's relationship with time becomes incredibly clear.
Humanity started by simply observing the natural patterns of the world. Then, out of the necessity of complex civilization, we invented clocks and calendars to measure that change.
But we made a fatal collective error. We confused our measurement for reality itself. We mistook the paper map for the physical territory.
Then science stepped in, and through Einstein, proved that a universal, absolute cosmic clock doesn't even exist in the physical universe. Time is relative.
Psychology and neuroscience showed us exactly how our brains manufacture the oppressive feeling of time through the evolutionary tools of memory and imagination, trapping us under the crushing weight of imaginary backpacks.
And finally, the mystics, supported by our own direct sensory experience, reveal that underneath all of that mental noise, life only ever happens right now.
The greatest gift we can possibly receive isn't figuring out a life hack to get more time. That is a fool's errand.
The real gift is simply recognizing the awareness that has always been here, completely undisturbed by the ticking clock.
It is a radical, life-altering shift in perspective. It allows you to use chronological time as a practical tool without being a psychological prisoner to it.
So, to everyone listening, as you go about the rest of your day, here's my direct call to you. Don't just mindlessly watch the clock today. Watch the one who is aware of the clock.
Notice that quiet, unchanging presence behind your eyes that is simply watching the clock tick.
And as we sign off, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to chew on. This is something that wasn't explicitly stated in the source material, but it builds directly on everything we've unpacked today regarding the illusion of the past.
I always appreciate a good paradigm shift to end on. What is it?
If the past literally does not exist anywhere in the physical universe, except as a reconstructed memory firing in the neurons of your brain right in this exact present moment, what does that mean for the fundamental concept of forgiveness?
Oh, wow. I haven't thought about it from that angle.
Think deeply about it. If time is an illusion, and the past isn't a real physical place you can ever visit or alter, then forgiving someone isn't about going back and changing history.
It's not about wishing an event didn't happen.
It is simply the act of taking off one of those heavy memory backpacks right here in this exact present moment and refusing to carry a ghost into the present.
You aren't changing the past.
Yeah.
You are just consciously choosing to put down the memory right now so it stops dictating your present reality.
That is an incredibly powerful reframing. Forgiveness isn't about time at all. It is just dropping the backpack in the present moment. I know I'm going to be thinking about the implications of that all week.
Well, my friend, that brings us to the end of our journey today.
Thank you so much for your time, your curiosity, and for being willing to question the very fabric of reality with us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember to actually be here for the one moment that actually exists. Have a great one.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might benefit from the conversation. Your support helps us continue exploring the deepest questions of life, consciousness, and reality. I am Julia Carter, and it is my honor to introduce Joe Bandra, author, philosopher, speaker, healthcare technology pioneer, and lifelong explorer of life's questions. Through his writing, Joe bridges science, philosophy, psychology, spirituality, and direct experience in a search for truth. His first book, Finding Nevaeh, is a transformative journey of self-discovery and the search for lasting happiness. His second book, Body, Mind, and Machine, chronicles his remarkable career and the evolution of healthcare technology. His next book, The Nature of Reality, explores consciousness, existence, and the mysteries at the heart of human experience. Joe's work invites us to look beyond what we think we know and awaken to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe we inhabit.
Life often feels like an endless list of tasks, constant noise and distractions, pulling us in every direction. We're all searching for happiness, but what if we've been looking in the wrong places all along?
This was Nevaeh's journey. Lost in the noise, she felt cut off from the peace and happiness she longed for, until she met Joe Bandra, an unconventional, insightful philosopher with a different perspective. Jay, as he is simply known, didn't hand her a map. He gave her something far more valuable, a compass, a way to turn inward, navigate her own thoughts, and uncover the clarity hidden beneath the chaos.
Readers around the world